Hello, I'm Sandra Enamil from The Ohio State University Library's Copyright Resources Center. We help patrons understand how copyright law may apply to the work they create or want to use. And we often receive questions from faculty, staff, and students about using third-party materials. In many cases, fair use should be considered as one option for using third-party works, but the patron may not be sure where to begin. So we created the following video as an example which shows an individual who uses a fair use checklist to work through the step-by-step analysis for using copyrighted works in her research project.
I'm creating a video to educate the public regarding potentially misleading food labels such as all natural, made with whole grains, or low fat. I want to include images and text from product labels and ads using these terms and evaluate the nutritional information for the same items to determine that such labels don't necessarily mean that the product is a healthy choice. Advertisements and packaging designs are protected by copyright, so I need to figure out what my options are for using them legally. Could my project be considered a fair use? I know my video isn't automatically fair use just because it's educational. I have to consider several other factors as well. I'll use a fair use checklist to help me work through the fair use analysis. The first factor is the purpose and character of my use. I'm using the material for criticism, comment, and teaching or educational use. I think my video is also a transformative use, since these ads and packaging materials were originally created to help identify and sell products. Looks like I can tick several boxes on the list in favor of fair use here. But is there anything about the purpose of my video that opposes fair use? I won't be selling the video or trying to profit from it, and it's not meant to be entertaining. And I'm not identifying individual companies in my video in order to keep the focus on deciphering nutritional information instead of producing a what not to buy list. I won't be crediting the original authors of the copyrighted material, but this doesn't weigh very heavily against fair use since copyright law does not require acknowledging a source. The second factor considers the nature of the copyrighted material that I'm using. I need to consider several things, including whether the work is fact or fiction, and if it has been published. Well, the ads and product packaging I'm using are presented as factual information, and they've been published on a manufacturer's website or on the product themselves. They're also important source material for the educational objectives of my video, so I can tick all three boxes in favor of fair use for this factor. Some advertisements might be considered highly creative, so I should tick that box. Even though this opposes fair use, it seems like it is outweighed by the other three criteria in favor of fair use. Okay, for the third factor, I need to take a look at how much of the copyrighted material I'm using. I am only using portions of the labels and ads that contain nutritional claims and information. The amount used is necessary and appropriate for the purpose of my project, and I am using a small percentage of the original work. So I can tick two boxes favoring fair use. If the parts of the labels or ads I use could be considered the heart of the work, I would need to tick that box in opposition of fair use. Even if I use the heart of the work, I think this can be mitigated by the fact that I am only using what's necessary to accomplish my overall purpose. The fourth factor considers the effect my use might have on the market for the original work. Could my use impact the copyright owner's ability to sell or license their work? I did some research and confirmed what I suspected. The companies who own the copyrights for these labels and ads are not selling any products or services that analyze the contents of product labeling, and it seems unlikely that they would do so in the future. So my use is not in competition. There's no available license for me to use, and I doubt the owners would want to license their content to me since I plan to critique it. I lawfully obtained my copies of the work, so I can tick three boxes in favor of fair use for this factor. On the other hand, since I plan to make my video publicly available online indefinitely, this constitutes a repeated use where the copyrighted material is easy to redistribute. This could impair the potential market for such works if consumers begin to reject products with misleading marketing. The fair use checklist shows me a recap of the four factors, but I can't just count up the number of items favoring and opposing fair use to find my answer. I have to think about my analysis as a whole. The first three factors favor fair use, while the fourth may slightly oppose fair use. For this particular case, the purpose of my video weighs the most heavily in favor of fair use and would likely outweigh any potentially detrimental effect on the market, since socially useful critical purposes are expressly identified in the Fair Use Statute as possible instances of fair use. Therefore, I feel comfortable concluding that my analysis favors fair use. I'll keep a copy of my fair use analysis so that I can refer back to it if I encounter any questions.